Hi, and welcome back to Football Made Simple. And we are back with another tactical analysis as two of Europe's finest faced off in the Champions League as Real Madrid hosted Liverpool. It was a difficult tie to call, as shown by your voting on the poll put out before the match. But in the end, it was Real Madrid who came out on top, thanks to a double by Vinicius and an Asensio goal, while Salah got the away goal for Liverpool. The XG indicated that Real did create more across the 90, 1.93 to 0.79. But what tactics did Zidane and Klopp use? Let's take a look. First, a reminder of their tactics, as both managers used 4-3-3s, as you can see on screen now, courtesy of our wonderful sponsor, the OneFootball app. OneFootball is the best football app to keep up with your favorite teams and players, giving you news, stats, match updates, and so much more. Absolutely free through the link in the description below. Let's start with what Real did on the ball, as they were more dominant. Generally in the first half, Liverpool did not press as high up the pitch. They would use a high block, but not necessarily look to win the ball higher up, particularly from goal kicks. But as the match went on, Liverpool did press more and more and looked to filter the ball out to Real's right hand side, particularly to Vasquez, who they would then look to press aggressively. They did this as when the centre-backs had the ball, Salah would look to press early from wide, before Mane, who tended to push ahead of Jota, looked to press his man. This would often mean that only three options would be back to Courtois, but most often Vasquez, who Liverpool would then press. The stats reflect this, with Vasquez seeing a lot of the ball, the second most in fact for Real Madrid. And higher up the pitch, Liverpool consistently used a similar shape, with both Salah and Mane pressing quite narrow, whilst Madrid's fullbacks pushed higher up the pitch, and this was the root of many of Liverpool's problems. In prior seasons, when they have used this narrow pressing shape, the wingers would press from out to in, making sure that the passing lane into the fullbacks was also cut. This didn't happen in this match, and on either side, Real time and again easily found their fullbacks. Down the right, this would be Vasquez, and as a result the midfield and entire team in general would have to shift across to cover. And the pressing shape would create even bigger problems for the Reds, as Salah didn't tend to track back even once the first line of pressure was bypassed. Vinicius would move into the half space on the left, taking Trent in centrally with him, whilst Ferland Mendy was quick to move high up the pitch. This constant 2 versus 1 throughout the 90 meant that Trent struggled. Vasquez from here would then have the time and space to attempt the switch into Mendy, and he attempted 10 long balls throughout the 90, only bettered by Courtois and Militao. And once Mendy received the ball, he and Vinicius combined well throughout the 90 to get to the byline to look for crosses or to cut infield to look for shots, whilst constantly rotating their positions. And Real Madrid rarely attacked through the centre, as using width and side overloads allowed them to exploit Liverpool's narrow shape well. We saw similar patterns when they built down the left, but as Mendy tended to push higher than Vasquez on the right, it would be Kroos who would move into this region to then look to switch it out to Vasquez once Asensio moved more central. But when Real did build more centrally, Kroos was once again the key. Casemiro tended to push higher up to allow Modric and Kroos to handle the build-up from deep, as they are excellent on the ball. And Kroos often dropped just ahead of his centre-backs to create a 3 versus 2 against a narrow press, and to be the outlet ball to beat this press. And Real in these phases could look to push Casemiro and the inverted wingers between the lines, which would force Liverpool's own midfielders deeper, whilst the Real fullbacks advanced, and this meant that Kroos would have room with which to dictate the play, both short and long. And the first goal has elements of this on full display. Kroos has dropped deep, and as we can see, Liverpool use a high block but without applying pressure to the man on the ball. The inverted wingers, and Modric in this case, are between the lines, forcing the Reds' midfield deep. Mendy is high, meaning that Trent is caught in two minds, so he can't get too tight to Vinicius, who can then make the run and finish well. But let's look at what Liverpool did when they were in possession. Liverpool looked to build short when possible to the centre-backs, and early on in the match, Real were high pressers. This was invariably a 4-4-2 shape, with either Modric or Kroos joining Benzema. And this was a match where the small details made the difference. When Modric pressed, he would almost always get his angles right, cutting off the route into Fabinho, and as we discussed, Liverpool's own pressers were not able to do that. This meant that the fullbacks often had to start much deeper to provide the outlet in this phase, and Madrid in this aggressive press could then have their wide man press and a second midfielder make it difficult for Liverpool to play back infield, so they effectively boxed in the fullback. Liverpool did look to build with a midfield 2-1, with the second pivot providing a new angle, but as mentioned, Real were not afraid to commit an extra man. Liverpool's third midfielder would often be high between the lines, and Mane also tended to move narrow, almost into a 10 role, and perhaps with a more penetrative passer at centre-back, they could have found these men in dangerous positions between the lines. And Liverpool did look better in the second half, and part of that was actually applying pressure when defending. But another part was Thiago coming on, who allowed the fullbacks to move higher and wider earlier, as he would move into the pseudo right back role in the build-up, which would allow them both higher as they now had a back three. The knock-on effect was allowing the forwards to move more narrow to get on the end of crosses, which they almost did on a couple of occasions. And when there were turnovers, so many men central meant they could more effectively counterpress Real's influential midfield three, but it was to no avail. Overall, Real Madrid were excellent on the night, earning a well-deserved win. However, the away goal for Liverpool means that the second leg will be interesting, as they are far from out of the tie. But what did you make of this match, and what else did you notice? Who do you see going through in this tie? Drop it down below. And if you want even more content, whilst helping to support the channel, consider checking out my Patreon at patreon.com/footballmadesimple. You'll get early access to videos, exclusive videos, as well as access to the upcoming FMS video podcast. But that's all for today, and remember, keep it simple.